George St. Pierre, Alexander Volkanovski, Tyson Fury. What do these three men all have in common? They're at the top of their game and they're clean shaved, and you could be too with Manscaped. The MMA Sucker podcast is happy to announce that we are now sponsored by Manscaped, and you can get a massive 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SUCKER at checkout. Now, a little bit about Manscaped. Manscaped is the best in men's below the waist grooming, offering precision engineering tools for your family jewels. With Valentine's Day just around the corner, there's no better time to invest in the all-new Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, designed to elevate your grooming game. As part of the Performance Package, we have the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, which I've been lucky enough to get my hands on, and it is a quality bit of kit. Quality bit of kit. The electric trimmer features skin-safe technology, making it harder for you to nick yourself than it would be to land on prime Anderson Silver. It also comes with their brightest ever LED spotlight yet. It's brighter than the lights of the UFC. I mean, come on, guys, check this out. Got that? Look at that bright light. Brighter than the lights of the UFC, I'm telling you. On top of that, it's also waterproof, making shower shaves an absolute breeze. But that's not everything. This package also features the Weed Whacker 2.0 nose hair trimmer, Manscaped's liquid formulations, and two free goodies. The Shed travel bag, which I've been, again, lucky enough to get my hands on, and Boxers 2.0, because let's be honest, guys, comfort is king. And for those of you that want the sculptured Roy Nelson-esque beard, Manscaped brings you the Beard Hedge Pro Kit, designed to shape your scruff effortlessly. It sculpts the cheek lines and maintains the beard style to give you the suave look for every single occasion, especially those romantic occasions with Valentine's Day coming up. Join 10 million, let that sink in, 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com to bag 20% off with the code SUCKER. Is that enough? No? Throw in free worldwide shipping. Like I said, head over to Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com. Use the code SUCKER, that's SUCKA at checkout for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Thank me later. Your balls will thank you. What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the MMA Sucker podcast. As always, I'm Frazer Krohn, and we've got a really good episode lined up for you today. We're looking back at UFC Fight Night on ESPN Plus 93, I think, better known as UFC Fight Night Hermansson versus Pyfer. And then we're going to look ahead and do a bit of a preview. As always, guys, you know that I don't particularly like doing previews, but when the card is as good as the card that we've got lined up this upcoming weekend, it is not one to be missed. So like I said, let's jump straight into it. UFC Fight Night Hermansson versus Pyfer. In the main event, Jack Hermansson came from behind on many people's scorecards to win the fight. He won the fight via unanimous decision. Pretty much everyone that I've seen online had it 3 rounds to 2. I saw one person have it, I think it was 48-48, the first round being a 10-8 for Joe Pyfer. But I think 48-47 in favor of Jack Hermansson was the right decision. And I'm the only one on the MMA Sucker Picks that picked this one. I'm gonna brag. I'm gonna pat myself on the back. And the reason for that is the step up in competition from Abdul Razak Al Hassan, Jared Meerschaert, Alan Akhmedov. That's a big step up in competition to one like Jack Hermansson. Now, I'm not saying Jack Hermansson is an absolute world beater, but if you look down Jack Hermansson's record, yes, he's traded wins and losses, and you probably could have suggested since 2019, that his form would suggest that he would have won this one anyways. He's won one, lost one, won one, lost one since April 2019. But he's got a win over Jacare Souza. He lost to Jared Cannonier. He's got a win over Calvin Gastelum. He went 5 rounds and lost to Marvin Vettori. He's got a win over Edmund Shabazian. He went 5 rounds and lost to Sean Strickland, the former champion. He then beat Chris Curtis via unanimous decision over 3 rounds. and then he lost to Roman Dolodzi. These are some elite guys. All of, Dolodzi, Curtis, Strickland. I think Shabazian was ranked at the time, or was ranked at a time. Vettori, Calvin Gastelum, former title challenger. Um, Jared Cannonier, perennial contender, Jacare Souza. Then you look further down. He fought and beat Jared Meerschaert in 2018, and Pyfer beat Jared Meerschaert in, I think, yeah, in 2023. So it's an older aging Gerald Meerschaert, and both guys kind of, did finish him in the first round. That's why I thought Jack Hermansson might win this one. Um, Without a doubt, Joe Pyfer was 2-0 up after 2 rounds. So I don't think that first one for me was a 10-8. I saw um I saw something that he it was because he had wobbled him multiple times in that first round that someone scored a 10-8. Not for me. He only landed 8 more strikes than Jack Hermansson. Yes, they were far more telling strikes, but 8 more strikes is still 8 more strikes at the end of the day. Jack Hermansson wasn't dropped, he wasn't wobbled, he wasn't taken down, he wasn't, he did really well. To a lot of the shots that Joe Pyfer was throwing were bouncing off the guard, bouncing off the shoulders, bouncing off the forearms of Jack Hermansson. Um, a second round, I think, was a close round as well. Not a close round. It was definitely a Joe Pyfer round, but it was closer than the first round. But then rounds 3, 4, and 5 were all Jack Hermansson's round. Um, Again, you can't tell too much. You can't predict too much off just stats, but the stats do show that Jack Hermansson, he landed 16 shots in the first round, 19 shots in the second round, and then the third, fourth, and fifth, it was 43 in the third, 58 in the fourth, and 52 in the fifth round. He really upped his output, and it was the jab. The jab couldn't miss, and he hurt the eye of Joe Pyfer in the third round from that jab, and body bags was never able to recover. Um, what I did think was really good with Jack Hermansson, I don't mean this is an insulting thing, but he's almost like a bit of a, we always say that he fights like, or we see the the clips of people fighting like they and we say, oh, they're fighting like they do, that they're on a video game, they're playing UFC 4 or UFC 5, whatever it is now. And that's a little bit like Jack Hermansson. You don't really know. He doesn't throw the traditional 1-2, 1-2. It'll be 1-2 and then slam the leg kick, which is something he did really well. Leg kicks landed in this fight 32 for Jack Hermansson. That was really played a part in Joe Pyfer's downfall in this one. I just really think that it was, sorry, back to my original point of the sort of the unusual style. We know he's got that herky-jerky style when he's all shoulders, and he's a very good grappler, and he only shot for 2 takedowns in this fight. One in the second round and one in the fifth round. He landed that one in the fifth round, took Joe Pyfer down and controlled him for 3 minutes of the final round to really, cement that victory for him. But it was kicks up the middle, it was uppercuts, it was leg kicks, it was, the odd spinning attack. And I just thought it was a really good, well-rounded performance from Jack Hermansson. And I think, let me just double check the rankings, because I think, he's called for Nasruddin Imanov. I think that's a pretty logical fight. Imanov's gone up three places to number 8. Jack Hermansson has gone down a place. He'll probably stay where he is because the man above him is Roman Dolodzi, who obviously holds a win over Jack Hermansson. But it was a really good performance by Jack Hermansson, like I said, and I'm really impressed with the way that he handled a tough first 2 rounds. Joe Pyfer, I don't think he goes anywhere, to be honest. He obviously wasn't ranked at the time. He's 27 years old, and he's still got, these heavy hands. Did he fall in love a little bit with the sort of one-touch knockout power that we know he has, and the beating of Francis Ngannou's record for hardest ever punch or something like that? Potentially, but what it appeared like is what I also say a lot of the time, is that he didn't really look like he had a he didn't seem to have a plan B. It was go out there and knock a Manson out. If that didn't work, he shot for lazy takedowns that like I said, they were lazy. They weren't really great takedowns. I'm just looking down the rankings now. Who he could face next. It's difficult. It's really difficult because do they want to keep building Joe Pyfer and giving him slightly easier fights? If they do, someone like an experienced guy, but not in that elite level, with Brad Tavares, who obviously lost on this one. We'll go on to talk about that in a second. Um, or do they give Jung Yong Park? He lost last time out to Andre Muniz maybe. But for me, it's a difficult one because logically for me, the next fight would be someone like um, Gregory Rodriguez or is Ikram Alexov, or even if you drop down a little bit down the rankings, there's Bruno Ferreira. Obviously, I think he's 1-0 in the UFC. Oh no, sorry, he's 2-1 in the UFC. Knocked out Gregory Rodriguez, lost to Ruziboev, and beat Phil Hawes last time out. Earlier last month, earlier in January. But you know, you've really got to look at how do they want to build him. And I think the way that they want to build him is to be a potential star. So I think they give him a slightly easier fight. I'm not sure who that will be, but Joe Pyfer didn't really lose much despite losing this fight. He was the unranked guy going into the fight. And he wasn't, despite being the favorite, he wasn't exactly expected to win this one. Jack Hermansson's a really experienced guy, and that showed in the fight. Co-main event saw a brutal knockout. Dan 50K Ige living up to his nickname and getting the 50K, I imagine. I say I imagine. I don't know why I said that because I know that he did. He got the performance of the night bonus. Pretty much a one-punch knockout over Andre Fili, who took it on slightly short notice, but it wasn't too short notice. Dan Ige rebounded from that loss to Bryce Mitchell last time out. Just a lovely, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch the fight. It only lasts 2 minutes and 43 seconds. Just a lovely overhand right, followed up by one more shot. But I'm not really sure that the additional shot was needed. The referee wasn't really quick enough for my liking, but it's like I said, it's pretty much a one-punch knockout walk-off. Just like I say, it's a really impressive performance from Dan Ige. And for me, if you're Dan Ige, you've taken a fight against a guy who's not ranked. Andre Fili, obviously, taking the fight on short notice. You rebook the Lerone Murphy fight. I really think that should be the fight that Ige has next. Elsewhere on the card, we had a reasonable performance by Gregory Rodriguez. I don't think he looked as good and as devastating as he has previously, but he was able to finish Brad Tavares. I mean, standing really. Beat Brad Tavares in the third round. Michael Johnson beat Darius Flowers. Michael Johnson still doing it at 106 years old. No, I'm joking. I like Michael Johnson. I think he's what 37, 38. Rebounds from that knockout loss to Diego Ferreira last time out. Elsewhere on the card, Rodolfo Vieira's win over Armen Petrosyan came. It was a confusing one. He had full mount and he locked in the arm triangle, and Petrosyan definitely tapped, and he stood up, kind of protesting the tap. And they alluded to on the commentary, and I think I probably agree that he was kind of all the way. He was 99% out cold. He tapped, and as soon as the referee jumped in, got Vieira off Petrosyan, he kind of woke up again and forgot that he tapped. But it was a good performance from Rodolfo Vieira, who continues to be dangerous in the grappling game, as we know that he is. He's got 5 wins in the UFC, all of them finishes, all of them by submission. 3 of them have gotten the performance of the night bonus, so it's not bad going for Rodolfo Vieira. Carlos Prates, I apologize if I butcher the nickname, scores a big knockout over Trevin Giles, and it came kind of out of nowhere. The guys weren't really in range, and he just lands a big overhand right and knocks Giles out. Really good performance, won him a performance of the night bonus. Loma Lookbourne, I thought looked quite good against Bruna Brazil. Lookbourne, she's still, for me, she's still an atom weight. She's really, really small, but she's I think 3 wins in a row now for Lookbourne. So She should be looking to get a ranking next. Bogdan Guskov versus Zach Puga. Again, strange. There was a lot of strange knockouts. There wasn't a lot of sort of flash TKOs. This one, he kind of knocked him out, and Puga didn't go down, as it were. He was kind of still on his feet, crouched down, and then he was knocked down. And Guskov, gets a knockout on his debut, on his second performance. Sorry, he obviously lost to Volkan Ozdemir in his debut. And the first fight of the night they fought to a no contest. There was a lot of fouls on each side. Arichi Lang was losing the fight and was low blowed and couldn't continue. I haven't actually heard. I know he was rushed to hospital to get a scan. I don't actually know how that went. I haven't heard any updates from that. So if we do, check out MMA Sucker's Instagram. And I'll give you an update on that. But like I said, he was losing the fight, and was he lucky that the low blow came? Perhaps he was. But moving on, guys, the UFC 298 preview. This is what I want the majority of today's episode to be about, because it is a really good card. I'm going to talk about the main event and the co-main event, then talk about the main card, and then give a few sort of ones to watch on the undercard, because I could legitimately talk about every single one of these fights in a lot of detail, because there's a lot of really good fights. I don't know the official lineup. That's the only issue. As far as fights up and down the card are concerned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off what Tapology have got. Obviously we know the main, co-main, and the main card. But just as far as the prelims are concerned, I'm going to go off what Tapology have got them as. So apologies if they're slightly wrong, but you'll still get what you need in the main event. So UFC 298, headlined by a featherweight title bout between the reigning champion Alexander Volkanovski against the undefeated Ilia Topuria in Anaheim, California, United States of America. This is a phenomenal matchup. Alexander Volkanovski, 26-3-0, Ilia Topuria, 14-0. I've got a whole separate video of a technical breakdown of this fight coming out on the MMA Sucker channel, and I'll probably release it as an audio podcast as well. It's only about 10 or 15 minutes long, but just really looking at this fight specifically. That's coming out later in the week. So I'm not going to go into too much sort of technical depth, because that's what the other video is about. But this matchup is amazing. You've got Volkanovski, who's coming off a knockout loss, looking to defend his belt against Ilia Topuria, who's undefeated. Let's not forget that knockout loss came at the hands of Islam Makhachev, upper weight class, when he hadn't really been training. He admitted, that he'd been drinking beers all week. I don't think we can put too much stock into that knockout loss. Yes, he's got to be aware of the high kick, and Ilia Topuria is certainly aware of the high kick now that he knows that Volkanovski can be hurt or finished even with the high kick. But I don't personally put too much stock into that. Volkanovski will hold a 2-inch reach advantage, but a 1-inch height disadvantage. So that kind of eradicates the reach advantage, really. You're talking probably a 1-inch reach advantage, which I don't really think is massive. Is going to play too much of a factor either. The bodywork of Ilia Topuria and the scrappy nature of him, wanting to get on the inside and hook to the body and then take upstairs, is what Volkanovski really needs to be careful of. I can see Ilia Topuria looking to attack the legs of Volkanovski to stop that movement, causing him to be more of a prone target, and then, like I said, getting on the inside and looking to hook to the body and hook upstairs. Whether Volkanovski will allow him to do that, we know that he's a good checker of leg kicks. We also know that he's a very, very good leg kicker himself. And he's a switch hitter. So if Ilia Topuria does start attacking the lead leg of, say, Volkanovski's left leg when he's in the orthodox stance, he can switch it and go into the southpaw stance and pretty much do just as well. I think we'll see a well-rounded mixed martial arts fight in this one. I don't see it just being a stand-up battle. Volkanovski wrestled a lot prior to the first Islam Makhachev fight. I think we saw that in his last featherweight outing against Yair Rodriguez. He landed 7 takedowns on Rodriguez, who Rodriguez notoriously isn't an easy guy to take down. Yeah, if you look at some of his past opponents, everyone's looked to take Yair Rodriguez down. Some have had success, some haven't had success, but he's not an easy guy to take down, let alone hold down. And Volkanovski took him down 7 times. Ilia Topuria, on the other hand, has got a 92% takedown defense. Bryce Mitchell, I think, is the only man to take him. Yeah, Bryce Mitchell's the only man to take him down in his UFC career. He took down Josh Emmett 3 times in his last outing, which again, it's not an easy thing to do. Josh Emmett is a very good wrestler, and he was able to time those shots and really get Emmett to the floor and control him when he was down there. How do I see this fight playing out? If Volkanovski is bulletproof in the mind, I can see him winning this fight with relative ease. Not to say that Ilia Topuria isn't legit. I think Ilia Topuria is one of the best featherweights in the world, but I think everybody's forgotten just how good Alexander Volkanovski is. Not was, is. Yes, he lost his last time, lost his last fight. He's coming off the couch at the end of the day. He was, quite literally. And, you know, it's up a weight class. It's against Islam Makhachev, who is pretty much a welterweight fighting at lightweight. So I don't think you can put too much stock into that. What I would say is I think that he enters this one with a vengeance, really, really focused and pinpoint on looking to get the win. And that's dangerous for Ilia Topuria, who has been poking the bear, he's supremely confident. Why wouldn't you be at 14-0 with multiple finishes? But in my breakdown of this fight, I kept on referring back to the Jai Herbert fight. Jai Herbert pretty much knocked Ilia Topuria out. Again, it's at lightweight, but he pretty much knocked him out. And, that big knee up the middle that caught Topuria and almost, like I say, almost finished him. How this one's going to play out, I think Volkanovski is going to be on his bike, really quick, really sharp. And I really do think Volkanovski is going to get it done across 5 rounds. I don't see him finishing Topuria because I think Topuria is very, very difficult to finish. But I just think at this moment in time, there's levels to this game. Volkanovski just on a slightly different level to Ilia Topuria. The co-main event. Now, I tweeted out the co-main event is Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. I think, let me just double check. I think it's across 3 rounds. Yep, 3-round co-main event between Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa. Now, like I said, I tweeted out that I've watched a lot of footage on Paulo Costa this past week, and I don't know if he's very good or not. I have no idea if he is a good fighter or if he is not a good fighter, and I still don't know. And that's having watched a lot of film on him. I've got a piece coming out on MMA Sucker again, a tactical breakdown, so I'm not going to talk about the tactics too much in this one. But this is an interesting fight. Robert Whittaker, 25-7-0. One of those 7 coming last time out at the hands of the new champion Dricus du Plessis. Prior to that, of course, he dominated Marvin Vettori over 5 rounds. And prior to that, he lost over 5 rounds to Israel Adesanya. Paulo Costa has been out for a hot minute. He hasn't fought since August 2022. So we're talking, a year and 6 months, just over. He was scheduled twice. He was scheduled to fight Ikram Aliskov at UFC 291. That was rescheduled. He was then scheduled to fight Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 294. He got that elbow infection, if you remember, and he wasn't able to make the walk then. You're only as good as your last fight, and he did win his last fight, against Luke Rockhold, an aging, older Luke Rockhold, who himself was coming off a prolonged period of time out. Luke Rockhold hadn't performed since 2019. He then turned up in 2022. You don't know what kind of Paulo Costa you're going to get. He's never been one to fully take this career of his too seriously, in my opinion. He got the win against he had the loss against Israel Adesanya in the title bout. He was then scheduled to face Robert Whittaker back in 2021. He had to pull out of that one due to injury. He was then scheduled to fight Jared Cannonier. He had to pull out of that one. Then he fought Marvin Vettori at middleweight, or scheduled for middleweight, I should say. And he came in and weighed in at 205 pounds. But he let Vettori know that week, and he lost that fight as well. It's an odd one for me. I think the power naturally sits with Paulo Costa. 11 wins via knockout, one via submission, two via decision. He couldn't make welterweight in his life, I don't think, Paulo Costa. You compare that to Robert Whittaker, he's got 9 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission, and 10 wins via decision. I am going to pick Robert Whittaker in this one. It's a difficult pick for me, though, because he didn't look good last time out against Dricus du Plessis, and he didn't look good against Israel Adesanya that second time, in my opinion. But he looked phenomenal against Marvin Vettori. For Costa, he's been out for the longest time, like I say, and he didn't look good against Marvin Vettori. He didn't look good against Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya worked those leg kicks in against Costa, and he looked reasonably good against Luke Rockhold, but he didn't set the, for me, he didn't set the world alight against Luke Rockhold. And like I say, that's an aging Luke Rockhold who really had no business being in there with a ranked guy. Um, I am leaning on the side of Robert Whittaker, just based on experience, really. He's, for me, the more well-rounded mixed martial artist. I think he's too light on his feet to be able to be caught by Costa. I think, like I said, he can get in and get out very quickly. Get into range and get out of range very quickly, and he has to do that against Paulo Costa. And there's not a massive size discrepancy between the two guys. Paulo Costa's an inch taller, but Robert Whittaker has an inch longer reach advantage. I think in there they'll look like a different weight class apart. Paulo Costa is a huge guy, but I just think that Robert Whittaker, like I said, just holds the slight advantage of having, he is the former champion, and he has been in there with some of the best in the world. And I think that's why he'll get the win. As per topology, like I said, we're just going to run down the main card now. The third fight on the card is Ian Machado Garry versus Geoff Neal. Ian Machado Garry is returning after what can only be described as a torrid week at UFC 296. Had to pull out of the fight. Well, he was getting pelters before that, before the fight itself. Then he had to pull out of the fight due to, I think he got pneumonia. That fight was against Vicente Luque. Obviously, that fight never went ahead. This fight was scheduled for UFC 292 in August, and Geoff Neal had to pull out of that one. And Ian Garry put on what I'd call a career best performance against Neil Magny, dropping him multiple times. Really, really solid performance, taking him down, just overall battering him. 111 strikes to 51 in favor of Ian Garry. This is a very interesting fight because these two guys don't like each other, and it's going to be a fascinating fight week anyway with the guys in the main event. You've got Costa, who always likes to try and steal the show, and you've got Ian Garry, and you've also got guys further down the card in Marab and Henry Cejudo that like to, try and steal the show, as it were. But I'm just looking at the sort of caliber of wins that Geoff Neal's got. Geoff Neal is a very straight stand-up boxer who's got decent leg kicks, decent kicks overall. We saw him knock out Mike Perry with that high kick, and it was followed up with a few punches. Last time out, he didn't look amazing against Shavkat Rakhmonov, but no one's looked that good against Shavkat Rakhmonov, if I'm honest. He's a phenomenal fighter. Prior to that, knocked out Vicente Luque. Prior to that, he had a bit of a flat performance against Santiago Ponzinibbio. But, if you look at the run that he's gone on, he got his contract on the Contender Series. He beat Brian Camozzi, beat Frank Camacho, Bilal Muhammad he holds a win over, Nico Price, Mike Perry. He then lost to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. No shame in that. He lost to Neil Magny, which is an interesting one. It's a shared opponent between the two. Beat Ponzinibbio, beat Luque, and then lost to Shavkat last time out. He's got heavy, heavy hands, Geoff Neal. And that's probably, why his nickname is Hands of Steel. Geoff Neal, great nickname. But the future, also pretty decent nickname. Ian Garry, 26 years old, Irish, but prefers the sort of nomadic lifestyle. Travels around. I think he's training with Charles Oliveira. I saw a picture of him and Charles Oliveira anyway. I don't know if that's an old picture or what. But does enjoy, traveling around to to get a lot of different looks. He's not sort of set at a gym. He was at Hard Knocks 365. Obviously, he left that gym when he was scheduled to face Vicente Luque. I don't know who will be in his corner this weekend. I'm not even sure if Ian Garry knows who will be in his corner this weekend. But just looking at the sort of tail of the tape, as it were, 15-5 for Geoff Neal, 13-0 for Ian Garry. Average fight times pretty similar. Geoff Neal 10 minutes 36. Ian Garry 11 minutes 13. Ian Garry's going to be the taller man in there by 4 inches. He stands at 6'3" as opposed to Neal's 5'11". But Neal's got a 1-inch reach advantage, 75 to 74 inches. But both men are pretty active on the feet. Over 5 strikes landed per minute. Strike actually pretty much the same. 50% for Geoff Neal, 56 for Ian Garry. Strikes absorbed. Geoff Neal does absorb more strikes, 5.60 as opposed to Garry's 3.58. But again, you've got to consider that Geoff Neal's gone 5 rounds with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He's gone the best part of 3 rounds with Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's been in there, with Santiago Ponzinibbio. He's been in there with Bilal Muhammad across the distance and Neil Magny across the distance. So that strikes absorbed per minute is slightly skewed. Takedowns average per minute, again, 0.51 for Geoff Neal, 0.67 for Ian Garry. Both men are more than capable when it does go down to the ground, but I don't think that they'll be looking to take this fight to the ground. I think this is going to be a stand-up battle. And I don't really know how this one's going to go. Ian Garry's 7 years, Geoff Neal's junior. Geoff Neal's, 33? Ian Garry is 26. I really don't know how this one's going to go. And that's what makes it so fascinating. I honestly do not have a clue how this one goes. I think both guys. I think Ian Garry's right. I imagine Ian Garry's ranked. He's not. Ian Garry's ranked number 10. Geoff Neal's ranked number 8. I think Geoff Neal potentially gets this one done and heaps the stain on Ian Garry. Ian Garry's not having a good time of it at the moment with everything that came out about his wife, Layla, Anna Lee. Layla Garry, I guess. He's obviously got his child. He likes having his child around fight week. But Geoff Neal's going to come in all business. He lost his last one. He really wants this fight. I think he feels disrespected by Ian Garry, and I think he's going to carry that into the fight, and he's going to carry that sort of power in his hands. And I don't think he's going to finish Garry, but Garry hasn't looked. His past 2 performances have looked like his best 2, without a doubt. Daniel Rodriguez, first round knockout, 3-round domination of Neil Magny. But prior to that, he was dropped by Kenyan Song. Gabe Green and Darian Weeks went the distance with him, and he's kind of pieced up by Jordan Williams slightly in his UFC debut. He's still undefeated at 13-0 though. So, this one could go either way. I am edging towards Geoff Neal, probably by a split decision or a unanimous, potentially contentious decision. But it's going to be a great fight, as is Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. Now, I thought this one was going to be contested over 5 rounds. It's not. It's a 3-round fight, which really plays into the hands of Merab. Merab coming off that dominant win of Petty Yan last time out. Prior to that, he did Jose Aldo over 3 rounds. Prior to that, he finished Marlon Moraes. Prior to that, Cody Stamann, John Dodson, Gustavo Lopez, Casey Kenny. All of these guys, Brad Katona, Terrion Ware, all of these guys have lost to Merab Dvalishvili. Let's not forget, he started his UFC career 0-2. He lost to Frankie Saenz by by split decision. I just want to read the stats out because this is an absolute joke. He landed 11 takedowns in that fight. He got 7 minutes control time. He landed 104 strikes to 66. And he lost the fight. He lost that fight. He landed 5 takedowns in the final round. He landed 4 takedowns in the second round. He landed 2 takedowns in the third round. I know takedowns only count if you do something with it, but he was doing stuff with it. Against Ricky Simone, he landed 6 of 22 takedowns. Of course, he was choked out in the final second of that fight. And then began his domination. He had 6 straight decision victories where he landed 5 takedowns against Terrion Ware, 5 against Katona, 12 against Casey Kenny, 13 against Gustavo Lopez, 2 against Dodson, 5 against Cody Stamann. Then he was all but out on his feet against Marlon Moraes before finishing him. He landed 4 on that occasion. He didn't land a single takedown against Jose Aldo, but if you look at the control time, he controlled him up against the fence well and just outworked Jose Aldo. And against Petr Yan, he landed just the 11 takedowns and controlled him for almost 7 minutes, and just outworked Petr Yan. Henry Cejudo, last time out, we can only judge him on his last performance because, let's be honest, he was retired for the best part of 3 years, well, almost bang on 3 years, against Aljamain Sterling. I thought he looked good against Aljamain Sterling. Split decision loss, but, I think it was just, if he would have been constantly competing, I think he maybe would have won that fight. He wasn't. He was stiff. He was rusty, and he lost the fight via split decision against Aljamain Sterling. He just didn't look sharp in that one. And I think he'll look sharp against Merab, but I don't think it'll be enough. It's a whole, Merab, slightly taller, longer reach advantage. Henry doesn't hit hard enough, I don't think, to really put Merab on his heels and prevent him from walking forward. I think even if he did, hit like Francis Ngannou, Merab would still look at walking forwards. Strikes landed per minute, Merab 4.46. Henry Cejudo 3.93. Accuracy pretty low on both, 41% against 47%. Takedown average per 15 minutes for Henry Cejudo is 2.07 with an accuracy of 34%. For Merab, it's 6.55 takedowns average per 15 minutes with an accuracy of 36. So the accuracy is pretty similar, but Merab just lands over 4 more takedowns than Henry Cejudo over 15 minutes on average. Granted, that means that his opponents do get up a lot more often. Realistically, if you're a wrestler that just wants to control your opponent on the ground, you should only land 3 takedowns a fight, 1 in each round. You shouldn't be allowing them to get back to their feet if that's where you want the fight, but, it is what it is. Takedown defense. Now, this is where I think Henry Cejudo is really going to have to play on. He's 83% takedown defense. He doesn't get taken down an awful lot. If we look at his UFC career, he wasn't taken down in any fight prior to the second Demetrius Johnson fight in 2018. He made his debut in 2014. Eight opponents couldn't take him down or didn't try to take him down. Obviously, that quick fight against a 32-second fight against TJ Dillashaw, he wasn't taken down. Marlon Moraes was never going to shoot for a takedown. Dominic Cruz didn't shoot for any shot for 4 takedowns and wasn't able to land any of them. And then Aljamain Sterling took him down 4 times, but that was out of 15 attempts. He's a very good Olympic style wrestler. I still think Merab's going to get it done. I really do. I think Merab he's too active to not get this one done, I feel. And I think Henry Cejudo is already debating retirement if he loses this one. Not a good sign for me. And I think Merab will get it done via a pretty dominant unanimous decision. I think Henry's already got 1 foot out the door at 37 years old. I really do. The final fight, or the fight opening up the main card, I think this is a late notice replacement. Anthony Hernandez was meant to be facing Ikram Aleskov. He's now facing Roman Kopylov, which is there's no easy fights in the UFC, but wow, Kopylov on a 4-fight winning streak, all of which have come via finish. He finished Alessio Di Chirico. He finished Puna Soriano. He finished Claudio Ribeiro, and he finished Josh Fremd in September. Like I said, all of them by finish, all of them by knockout. Anthony Hernandez is on a good run himself. He really is. He's 4-0 in his last 4 himself. He got that upset of the year in 2021 again when he subbed Rodolfo Vieira, who we were talking about earlier. He went to a decision with Josh Fremd. Marc-Andre Barrio, he finished in the 3rd round via arm triangle, and then he ground and pounded Edmund Shabazian last time out. For me, this is very much a sort of striker versus grappler. Anthony Hernandez averages 6.79 takedowns per 15 minutes. Kopylov lands 0.47. So Kopilov's going to look to keep this one on the feet. Anthony Hernandez going to look to keep this one down. If you look at Hernandez, Jing Yong Park, he took him down 6 times. He took Josh Fremd down 8 times. He took Marc-Andre Barrio down 8 times, and he took Edmund Shabazian down 6 times. he's a really solid wrestler, and I think he'll be looking to keep that number 14 spot next to his name, if not rise a couple of places in the middleweight division. Moving on to so on that one, that's just a really fun fight to watch. Really, I really do think that's going to be a potential fight of the night between Kopylov and Hernandez. Moving on for a few ones to watch. Obviously, we've got Mackenzie Dern returning, who I am predicting a little spoiler for an article that I've got coming out of betting tips. I'm predicting Mackenzie Dern gets knocked out again. She was awful last time out, truly, truly dreadful on the feet, and that was only in November. I think October, November time she lost to Jessica Andrade. Yeah, so November. How much can you learn in the best part of what, 3 months? Next to nothing, in my opinion, as far as just how far away she is from where she needs to be on the feet. And Amanda Lemos is a heavy, heavy hitter. We saw that against Marina Rodriguez. We saw that against Karate Hottie, can't remember, Michelle Waterson. We saw it against Angela Hill. We saw it against Montserrat Ruiz when she knocked her out in 35 seconds. Saw it against Livia Souza. She knocked her out. She rear naked choke against Miranda Granger. She's got heavy hands, and she's not the kind of person that Mackenzie Dern wants to be testing on the feet. I think Amanda Lemos is going to have having worked really, really hard on her takedown defense, because she was dominated by Wiley Zhang in the wrestling game last time out. She was taken down 6 times and controlled for 16 minutes on the floor. She received 96 ground and pound strikes, and she didn't land or even throw a single one. She was scheduled to face Tatiana Suarez, who is the best wrestler in the division, in my opinion. She's going to work the takedown defense. Now, Mackenzie Dern's takedowns, sounds like I'm shooting on Dern. I'm not. I quite like Mackenzie Dern. I think she's a fun personality to have in and around the sport. But her takedown accuracy is 14%. She's dreadful at wrestling. When she gets you down there, she's phenomenal. But she's dreadful at wrestling. We've seen that throughout her entire career. 14% is not good enough. And that's why I think Amanda Lemos is going to win that one. Justin Taffer returns. Name a boring Justin Taffer fight. You can't. He's a phenomenally fun fighter. He's on a 3-fight knockout streak. Head kick to Harry Hunsucker. Counter left strike to Parker Porter. Left hook to ground. Punches over Austin Lane after obviously the unintentional eye poke. Now he faces Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, veteran of the game. Lost to Derek Lewis last time out after that flying knee, and I think that affected him quite badly. So that'll be interesting that he's going straight in there with a one-punch knockout artist. Wales's Oban Elliott is on this card. He got a contract on the Contender Series. He faces Val Woodburn. If you remember, Val Woodburn came in on short notice to face Bo Nickel after I think it's Trezor Gore pulled out. I think Trezor Gore's pulled out of this fight again. A fight on this card again. He was supposed to be facing AJ Dobson. I don't think Tapology haven't got AJ Dobson match with anyone yet. We've got 2 undefeated fighters in Danny Barlow, fresh off the Contender Series. He faces Josh Quinion. Josh Quinion 6-1, but did lose last time out. And we've got, I'm going to butcher this, Rinya Nakamura. No, that I didn't. Rinya Nakamura. I think he's a wrestler by the looks of his. I'll be honest, I haven't heard an awful lot of Nakamura, but it looks like he's a Japanese wrestler, Olympic style folk wrestler maybe. He's 2-0 in the UFC. I can't lie and say that I've watched any of his UFC fights. But he faces Carlos Vera. Carlos Vera 11-3, as we know, making his UFC debut. Interesting. He was, he's recently signed to the UFC. Nakamura was scheduled to fight somebody else by the looks of it. Yeah, Brady Highstand. Brady Highstand. But is that to pull out? That's at 135 at bantamweight. And the other female fight on the card, certainly one to look out for: Miranda Maverick versus Andrea Lee. We had Miranda Maverick speaking to James Lynch on the channel this a couple of weeks ago. Be sure to check that one out. But Maverick, she's in a good place at the moment. Miranda Maverick, you can tell by the interview. She's coming off that dominant win over Priscilla Cachoeira last time out. Andrea Lee, I think, is coming off she's 3 straight losses: Viviana Rujo, Macy Barber, and Natalia Silva. never been finished in the UFC, which is interesting. She's a very solid fighter. I can see this one going in the favor of Miranda Maverick again. I think she's more hungry, and it's interesting that Andrea Lee is 0-3 in the last three. I think it's going to be 0-4. So that's UFC 298 preview, pretty much done and dusted. On Friday, we've got One Fight Night 19. Jonathan Haggerty returns to take on Felipe Lobo in what I think is a featherweight championship Muay Thai fight. As I said last week, and as I always say, Tim Wheaton, my former co-host, is the guy to go out and search out if you want a proper preview of this fight between Haggerty and Lobo, because he is the authority on all things Muay Thai in this space. He's the best. He is the best at it. He's the best. He's the most passionate about it, and he's the most knowledgeable about it. So search out Tim Wheaton. But on this occasion, guys, I've been Frazer Krohn. Manscaped, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SUCKER, SUCKA, free worldwide shipping, 20% off with the code SUCKER at manscaped.com. Be sure to click the link down below to get your Manscaped offer. UFC 298 is going to go off this weekend from, I think it's Anaheim, California. Let me just double check because I don't want to butcher that. But yeah, it's going to go off. Yep, Anaheim, California, the Honda Center. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria is an elite fight. Do not miss it, guys. I'll be straight back here next weekend, reviewing the card, giving it a bit of a technical breakdown, and then we're looking ahead to what is an exciting week in the world of MMA the week after next. But like I said, 298. Don't miss it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Like the video for me, subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll catch you next time.